This podcast may not be for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun.
Your ears do not deceive you, my friends. That is indeed the incomparable Jordin Sparks behind me. The Grammy-nominated songstress has captivated the hearts of millions with her voice, like honey-eyed gold. But what brings this luminary to our humble realm of the unexplained? We are upon Thanksgiving, so I thought, why not throw a little Christmas cheer in there for your listening pleasure? In this episode, I have a very, very dark, unsolved Thanksgiving tale for you. It comes from the 1930s, so please join me, intrepid explorers, in the chilly realms of the unexplained. As the specter of Thanksgiving looms before us, its usual warmth and laughter are replaced with an unsettling sense of foreboding in this tale. The year was 1935, a time when the world was still reeling from the Great Depression, and hope seemed as fleeting as a whispered secret in the wind. During this festive season, a time meant for joy and togetherness, a horror beyond comprehension unfolded, leaving in its wake a mystery that would haunt us for generations to come. Nestled 92 miles north of the bustling chaos of New York City lies the town of Stanfordville. Founded in 1793, its history whispers through the wind-swept trees like a chilling ghost story. In the shadow-draped heart of Stanfordville, it was here that James Husted Germond and his bride Mabel settled to cultivate not only the land, but also harvest a sense of ease that would linger for generations. The Germonds dedicated themselves to the grueling labor of a dairy farm, their lives dictated by the unforgiving rhythms of nature. James, a man they called Husted, was a figure of unyielding resolve. Rain or shine, his milk deliveries were never late, not even on the most sacred of holidays. The Germond family was held in high esteem by their peers. They were thought to be a hard-working family who were well-liked in their community. As night descended upon Stanfordville on November 26, 1930, the rustling of leaves and the mournful lowing of cattle would take on a sinister quality. It was the day before Thanksgiving. A shadowy figure emerged from the gloom, their footsteps echoing ominously as they approached the foreboding silhouette of the Germonds' home. Inside, Mabel's hands moved with haste as she prepared a meal for her family in the dimly lit kitchen. Suddenly, the knock at the door shattered the silence. Her heart pounding in her chest, Mabel cautiously peered out into the night, her mind racing with foreboding thoughts. The insistent knock at the door sent a chill running down Mabel's spine. Summoning her courage, she peered out into the darkness. Mabel stepped out onto the creaking porch, the weight of a hidden knife heavy in her hand. She raised the knife in some sort of self-defense, but the individual took the knife from her and was able to overpower her. This person stabbed Mabel with such great force, it penetrated her sternum. Though she had been stabbed in the chest, she still tried to turn away from this person and kick them, but they slashed at her leg. Desperate to escape, but was unable to move any further, A crimson stain began to spread on the unforgiving floorboards. In the echoing silence, Mabel's life ebbed away. For her final breath, a whispered surrender to the encroaching darkness. During Mabel's murder, her 10-year-old Raymond was sitting at the table in the kitchen. He witnessed the entire murder. Terrified, he ran out of another door and around the house to get to his father. His father was in the barn working with the milking machines. With a sense of dread building in his chest, Husted raced toward the house. Driven by an ominous feeling, he burst through the kitchen door, only to be met with a sight that made his blood run cold. The murderer, still lurking in the shadows, seized the momentary distraction. With a swift, deadly motion, they struck Husted's exposed head with the heavy knife handle. A binding flash of pain and then blackness. As Husted begins to fall from his head injury, the individual continues to stab him in his right armpit and right shoulder blade. With Husted and Mabel lying lifeless, the murderer's attention turns to its final prey. A chilling game of cat and mouse ensued as Raymond was relentlessly pursued across the sprawling property. His panicked breaths echoed through the stillness, each footfall a countdown to his inevitable fate. Finally, the murderer closed in, a swift, merciless stab, and Raymond crumpled to the ground. His lifeless body came to rest under a small rusted wagon. The killer then moved the bodies of Husted and Raymond to avoid detection from the last family member. You see, Bernice Germond was on her way home via bus. The killer knew she was coming home, and if she were allowed to live, she may discover what had happened and the identity of the killer. The bus driver later testified that Bernice was startled to see the house dark, but assumed everyone was out since it was the night before Thanksgiving. As Bernice stepped down from the bus, a sense of unease prickled at the back of her neck. Before her, the house loomed, and its windows like empty eyes staring back. The bus driver would later recall the flicker of surprise in Bernice's expression as she took in the unsettling darkness. But she pushed aside her doubts, reasoning that her family was likely out making last-minute Thanksgiving preparations. Little did she know, she was walking into a nightmare. Days dragged into an uneasy silence. Mr. Germond's unusually punctual nature at the creamery made his absence jarringly notable. An employee furrowed his brow in growing concern. It was downright peculiar for reliable Germond to miss his deliveries. A gnawing sense of unease began to take hold. Had something gone terribly wrong out of that isolated farmstead? Driven by a mounting sense of dread, the employee made his way to the Germond homestead. What he discovered would haunt the town for generations to come. The once peaceful farm was now a chilling tableau of death. The family slaughtered in their own home. In this tight-knit 1930s community, the police were woefully unprepared to process a crime scene of such horrific magnitude. The very fabric of their tranquility had been shattered, leaving only a legacy of unspeakable tragedy. The coroner's report indicated that the family had been stabbed 23 times. And this is where the story stops. The discovery of the Germond family's brutalized bodies sent shockwaves through the community. But as investigators descended upon the scene, a cascade of mishandled evidence began jeopardizing the case. The murder weapon, a bloodied knife, was carelessly passed from hand to hand, its forensic value rapidly deteriorating. Further complicating matters, James Husted's wallet was discovered near the house, suggesting a potential robbery motive. Yet, the more the police learned, the more questions seemed to surround the massacre of the Germond family. Police would follow leads in hopes of finding the killer. They even chased down a man who had recently purchased a knife of the same description. The only other lead came from Husted's ongoing feud with his neighbor, Arthur Curry. Arthur had a tendency for violent outbursts and did not like the Germond family at all. On the day of the murders, Arthur Curry left his farm at 4 p.m. He lived very close to the Germond family. He told his wife he was going to collect annual rent from the Germonds, as they rented pasture land from Curry. Though Arthur left at 4, he did not arrive back home until 6:40 to 6:50 p.m. When investigations began, Arthur told his wife he had seen James Husted but did not collect any rent money. He stated the killer must have come right after he left. Investigators were very suspicious, especially since they found Husted's wallet empty about a mile away. A local from the town named Raymond Byes previously asked Arthur to cut his hair. Arthur wasn't home when he arrived for his appointment. He saw only Arthur's wife and child. This would be about 10 minutes until 7. Arthur's wife let Raymond in, and soon after, Arthur arrived. He was visibly shaken and attempting to warm his hands over the stove. By February 15, 1933, the sheriff questioned Arthur, his wife, and their 9-year-old daughter. On February 18th, Arthur was arrested as a material witness, and by March 1933, he was charged with murder. But his defense filed an appeal to dismiss the case based on lack of evidence. The prosecution tried to get the judge to believe that the two men's ongoing feud was what caused Arthur to kill. The judge disagreed and believed there was too much suspicion and not enough evidence. Arthur Curry was released and all charges were dismissed. Arthur Curry died in 1955. We will never know if he committed these crimes or knew who did. Other theories include that Germond was selling moonshine and owed people money, or that he had a scorned lover. There is a YouTube video by Dr. Vincent Cookingham. He is a descendant of the Dutchess County Sheriff who initially investigated the Germond murders. He dissects the timeline and, in my belief, solves the crime. This case is 93 years old. Will it ever be solved? Or is this one just left to the unexplained realms? Once again, I have Grammy-nominated singer-songwriter Jordan Sparks behind me. Her voice is a heady elixir that intoxicates the senses. As I bid you farewell, I hope your Thanksgiving escapes the horror that the Germonds experienced. Their unexplained demise has forever etched a grim chapter in the annals of true crime. As the veil of darkness falls, I leave you to ponder the chilling unanswered questions that continue to shroud this horrific case. Until next time, May your turkey be plump, potatoes and gravy never have a lump. May your yams be delicious, and your minds always stay suspicious.
O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way.